Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss next important topic, that is balance sheet of NABARD as an institution. So today we are going to discuss about the standalone balance sheet of a NABARD. Balance sheet of any financial institution is very important because it reflects the financial health of that institution. It is also important because it showcases the risk management, its liabilities, its the sources of liabilities or the sources of funds, then uses of fund, that is the assets. So it is assets and liability management of the financial institution, and particularly about NABARD. So NABARD's balance sheet has grown tremendously from the inception towards the to the current balance sheet strength. Uh, when the NABARD was established in 1982, the balance sheet of a NABARD was around 4,500 crores. But right now, it has gone stupendously high to around 9.84 lakh crores in the financial year 2025. And even if we see from the last year, it was 8.1% annual growth rate was seen in the strength or the base of a standalone balance sheet of NABARD. The auditor of NABARD is a Suresh Surana versus and associate, who is a limited liability partnership company is there. So in a NABARD interview, there are few questions which are very prominent regarding the NABARD balance sheet. First is what do you mean by balance sheet itself? Second is the different sources of funds and the uses of fund with respect to NABARD. The third question would be what is the strengths of NABARD's balance sheet? What are the positive things? And one of them is the net NPA of NABARD is zero. So it reflects the good financial health of an institution. The difference between gross NPA and the net NPA, then the reasons behind the comparatively very low net NPA of a NABARD. So these are some questions, and one more question, that the NABARD's balance sheets growth compared to a previous year, that is financial year 2024. So let's talk about one by one. The first is sources of fund. So NABARD as an organization, there are several sources of fund. Prominently, the deposits are there. However, in the recent times, the borrowing from the bond markets and money market has been increasing, considering the higher spending through the different funds such as NIDA, that is the NABARD Infrastructure Development Assistance Scheme, because from this fund the mobilization for this fund is through either from its own fund of NABARD and also the market borrowings. So let's talk about sources of fund. uh, the first one is NABARD's own fund itself, which is around 80,000 crore. NABARD's own fund, which includes the capitals, reserves and surpluses. And even if you see capital, the authorized capital of a NABARD is 30,000 crores, which has increased from the 500 crores to 30,000 crores, whereas paid up share capital of NABARD is 17,080 crores. This is also a prominent question in NABARD interview. Secondly, the so this is the NABARD's own fund. So, and it has shown 8% growth rate from the compared to the previous year. Then there is an NRC fund. So NRC means National Rural Credit Fund. Value is not important for this one, but it includes stabilization as well as the long term operations. So generally stabilization means for conversion of the long term security, long term funds into long term advances into a short term loans or vice versa. So for this purpose NRC is there. Then the third most important fund is the deposits. So there are several funds which are managed by the NABARD, and the contribution to this fund is either from the PSL bank, the priority sector lending shortfalls. Then there are several other shortfalls are there. So through this, the funds are getting into deposited into this RIDF, that is Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, then Short Term Rural Credit Fund, and then most important three funds are there: Warehousing Infrastructure Fund for the financial, for which is providing funds for the warehouses and the cold chain infrastructure, then Food Processing Fund, so which promotes the food processing infrastructure and the food processing units within the mega food parks, then long term irrigation fund, so which prominently focus on completion of incomplete 99 major and medium irrigation projects. So total 2.75 lakh crores uh, 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 comes from these deposits. Within that, RIDF is very important, and in financial year 2025, the 1 lakh 94,000 crores, so this much of amount was deposited or mobilized in the RIDF fund from the PSL shortfalls from of the banks. Uh, and if we see, the total deposits are decreased compared to the last year. Then the borrowing from the bond market, that is capital market, is 3.27 lakh crores, which is very highest among all the sources of fund. And borrowing from the money market is 2.51 crores. Generally from the money market, certificate of deposits, commercial papers, which are from the corporate, fund mobilization from the corporates. So such instruments are used in a money market. In the bond market, so bonds and debentures are issued. However, NABARD primarily focus on the bonds only. Uh, in case of RIDF, so 1.94 lakh crores were mobilized. So this figure is very important. So further, so total overall the amount of the sources of fund is 9.84 lakh crores. Okay, so this much amount should be matched with the uses of the fund, and that's why it is balance sheet. Uh, and 9.84 lakh crores is a strength of a balance sheet, and previous year it was 9.11 lakh crores. So here also we saw 8% growth rate. Further, the uses of fund. In case of uses of fund, the cash and investments is the first one. The investment into the several government securities and other types of investment made by NABARD. Then second and most important thing is refinance for enhancing the ground level credit flow for agriculture investment and the production purpose. So both investment as well as the production, that means working capital loans, so both were included, and the refinancing is function is very important of the NABARD. Total 4.91 lakh crores, so around more around 50% of funds were used for the refinancing purposes. So this is the most important function. And second important function is, which is linked to the development function of a NABARD, which is infrastructure creation loans. So NABARD plays a very pivotal role in promoting the rural infrastructure, and which hitherto has a multiplier effect on the agriculture and the rural development. So there are several funds through which it promotes the various infrastructure like RIDF. From this fund, the social sector infrastructure, rural connectivity, and agri-allied sector infrastructure are being funded from this fund. Then warehousing infrastructure fund, micro irrigation fund, NIDA, which is a direct financing window of NABARD. Then RIAS, that is rural infrastructure assistance schemes, which is very important fund for the infrastructure development in the eastern and the northeastern state. Then there are several funds for the promotion of fisheries and animal husbandry, aquaculture. Further, there is a social sector investment, that is the investment. NABARD also focuses on the social sector infrastructure. So there are several financing instruments are there, like the special refinance schemes for the wash, that is water and sanitation and hygiene. Then refinancing for the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Gramin, Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin, etc. And also in the uses of fund, there are also several fixed assets which is not quite important. However, the total loans and advances in the uses of fund, it is 8.39 lakh crores, which is 85% of the total assets. This is very important. So it reflects that the most majority of the funds of the NABARDs are utilized for uh, further providing the loans and advances to the various institutions, as well as to the several direct state government, state owned corporations. There are several packs are there, then several cooperatives, as well as several NGOs. So standalone balance sheet for financial year 2025 was 9.84 lakh crores. Okay. So further, let's start talk about the several indicators of balance sheet. Like first is the C. 1 minute. That is the the capital adequacy ratio, or the capital to risk weighted asset ratio of NABARD organization. So in the financial year 2025, it is 25.58% as per Basel 3 norms. So in the previous year it was 16%, but the Basel 2 norms were applied in the previous year. In this year, the CRAR, it is 25.58%, and as per the RBI norms, the mandatory CAR limit is 9%. So compared to that, the 25%, it shows a very high performance in the capital to risk weighted asset ratio. And further, second is paid up capital is 17,080 crores, entirely owned by Government of India. Then in financial year 2025, the government has set the target of 35,000 crores for RIDF under tranche 30, as well as tranche 31 it was additional 35,000 crores. So it was not a contribution from the government. Actually, it is the annual limit which has been set by Government of India. So it reflects the total amount of credit flow towards the agriculture and the rural infrastructure development. Then further, loans for RIDF projects is around 19% of assets, 1.8 lakh crores. And the sources of fund, we have seen 1.94 lakh crores were mobilized from the RIDF, from the banks, from the banks, PSL shortfall. Then NIDA is 40,000 crore cumulative loans were there. However, even if you see the uh, long-term irrigation fund loans were 51,000 crores. So NABARD served its funding to support its development mandate. Then further, there are several indicators which is very important for the interview purpose. The first one is profit after tax, which is 7,628 crores. So profit after tax is very important. In the previous year, it was around 6,000 crores. Then this is very important, gross NPA, which is 0.24 percentage, and in absolute term it is the 2005 crores. Net NPA is 0. Now we will just see why net NPA is 0, and this is very important because many times they ask ki, despite we have the 84% of the loans and advances, but still we have net NPA 0. So why people are not defaulting, and why the banks, the commercial banks are so much so much NPA is there? We are establishing the bad banks. We are discussing about the resolution and the recapitalization of the commercial banks. Then why NABARD, despite having the high leverage, uh, showing the very good indicators in terms of NPA? So the first reason is in the refinancing models, banks bear the credit risk because NABARD provides funds to the banks. Banks further provides funds to the persons or the commercial institution, commercial persons or commercial institution, etc. So the credit risk bears by the bank itself. Secondly, when NABARD provides funds through its RIDF or other funds to the state government or state-owned entities, then there must be definite security or the collateral type of things should be there, as NABARD is providing loans to the such to the state government. However, there is no such a government security or any type of security is there. Actually, the funds or the credit is secured by a guarantee, that is irrevocable letter of authority. That means if the state government or state-owned entity defaulted, then it could be it could be further uh, uh, it could be guaranteed through its sovereign security, because for the every state government there is an account in the RBI. uh, uh, the guarantee is through that sovereign security. And further, the gross NPA in case of NABARD, we have the large amount of reserves and surpluses, so around 50,000 crores. So there is a high provisioning up to 100% of gross NPA is there. And further, so despite this, why the gross NPA is 0.24%? So there are several NGOs are there which are defaulting in the loan repayment. So that's why this much of the gross NPA is there. Further, when they ask what are the strains of a NABARD? So first is the profit after tax, second is net NPA, third is business per employee or productivity per employee. It is 141 crore. This is very important. Then return on assets, that is 0.86%. It has shown growth from 0.77% to 0.86%. Further, there is a difference between gross NPA and net NPA. Gross NPA, that means total amount of refinance and the loans which are extended to banks and institutions which have become NPA, that is more than 90 days overdue, including the principal amount and the interest. So in case of the financial year 2025, it was 0.24%. It reflects the total stress in the loans and advances loans portfolio. However, net NPA is actual bad loans after deducting provisions of potential loss made by the NABARD. So provisions are deducted from the gross NPA, then we get net NPA. So it is zero because of the conservative approach of NABARD. This is very important, and it reflects the actual risk exposure and financial vulnerability of an institution of a NABARD. So net NPA is very important. So it is calculated from by deducting the deductions by subtracting deductions from the gross NPA. So this is all about the NABARD balance sheet. Thank you.